welcome to another Fast Tracks webinar. This is a weekly event we do every Friday, 9 a.m. Central and Eastern. We go over various topics of the Fast Track software. You can see a list of all these events if you go to our website, FTx.com. Use the FTX Lifeline tab at the top of the page. Scroll down and look for that webinar button. Choose that. This page will show you a list of all of our previous webinars where you can view the recording, a list of our upcoming webinars where you can register, as well as sign up for the newsletter to be notified of upcoming webinars and Fast Tracks news. Today we're going to be looking at managing POS settings, panels, and Tinder mapping at corporate. Now, this used to be a tedious task back in the day where you had to, whenever it come to setting up specific settings at your stores, do that one store at a time. Now you can simply set this up at corporate, send those settings down to one or multiple stores or groups of stores, and it makes that process a lot simpler and a lot easier to manage. Now, whenever I say POS settings, I mean whenever you are in the POS itself at store level, and you go to your actions, settings, and settings. And all of these settings here have the ability to be managed at corporate. Whenever I say your buttons and panels, that's going to be your buttons that your POS screen has, and then panels, which are what buttons are tied to. So of course, there's multiple panels. In this case, I have a subtotal, a main, and a cashier functions panel, and different buttons on each. And the Tinder mapping is going to be something that's actually relatively newer. That's where in your POS settings, when you go to the other section, there's a manage Tinder mapping. And what this is used for is it's going to be a way to, instead of, say you get a coupon in at the store level, instead of just manually tying that to a manufacturer coupon bucket where everything is tied to that one Tinder and you don't know what manufacturer is tied, like what manufacturers owe you based on coupons, this lets you separate that out. And we're going to look at that first. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to Director here, and I'm going to go to my Maintenance module, and I'm going to go to my Tenders. And by default, you're always going to have this Tender ID 500 manufacturer's coupon. And that's just your generic manufacturer coupon. Everything can go here. It's a manufacturer coupon. But if you wanted to get more accurate, you could have it set to where you have ITG coupons or Altria coupons or RJ Reynolds coupons. You're more specific, and that way you know you can write a report at the end of the month and know how much that particular manufacturer owes you based on the coupons that you took in. Now, one key with that is making sure that you use unique Tender IDs that are in the 500 range. You want it to be between 500 and 600. Now, of course, 500 by default is already used. That's your manufacturer coupon, which is always going to be there. So in this scenario, I just went to 501, 502, 503, 504, so on and so forth, just incrementally going up. Now, to set this up to where you can differentiate between what is what, in the POS, whenever you're in this Manage Coupon Tender Mappings, you choose Add. You would choose the Tender ID that you're wanting to designate as a specific coupon. So let's just say I choose RJR here. And then you assign the manufacturer company prefix. That's going to be the first digits of that coupon. In the UPC world, those first 5 digits, those are going to be family code of a product. They're always going to be the same. So let's say that I wanted to map Newports to a specific coupon. In this case, RJ Reynolds coupon tender type. I know that that coupon starts with 261. I search for 261, then I'll see my RJ Reynolds. That's a Newport. They're the manufacturer of Newport. So I can tie that particular product to my RJR coupon tender value. That way, whenever I run a report, I can see how many specific coupons come from RJ Reynolds. Now I can save this, and then if in the prior environment, I would have to do this at every single store for every single tender that I wanted to have separated in that coupon tenders. That would take forever. So that's where we have the Tinder mapping at corporate. So we're going to look at these settings and how we can map that now. So from director, I'm going to go to my maintenance module, and I'm going to go to the POS settings area. This is a screen that allows you to pull POS settings from a specific location and then send that to another location. So let's say that I wanted to pull from store one and send settings to store two. I simply choose store one from that get settings from store dropdown, choose the get button, and then I have a list of all these settings. Basically, every setting that we saw in the POS settings is here. And let's say that I want to update a value. I want to change my receipt header. I just simply double click on that, and then I can update that value. I can save that, and then notice that update checkbox is checked. That lets me know that if whenever I'm sending this setting down, out of all these settings that are visible here, only that one that's checked is going to go to the store. So let's say that I want to update this particular value, just that one value with the store I just pulled from. I've got this checked. I'm going to choose send settings to store, check that, and then send. And then it's immediately going to send that down and let me know that it was successful. If I get an error message, then I know that there's probably some kind of networking issue. IP address could be wrong for that store at corporate, or there just could be a true network connection issue at corporate or at store level. So I can choose get now, and then that's going to update all my settings. So let's say that I want to copy some settings from store one to store two. Let's say that I want to do my lottery settings. I can check just these values. Let's say that I want to leave these as the same. I can set just those values and then uncheck store one because that's obviously where I'm pulling that from and choose store two and then send that down to store two. And that would update just those lottery settings at store two. I'm not touching anything else. It's as simple as that. There's some logic to the setting type. So for example, like the second ago, whenever we looked at the receipt header, that was obviously a text box. I could type in fields. If it's a true or false, it's simply a drop down, true or false. So there's going to be some ways to protect yourself that's built into the system where you can't mess something up. If you are opening a brand new store and you want to copy all the settings from one location to another, just simply get those settings from a location, choose to check all. It's going to copy everything except your credit card information if you're using integrated credit cards. And you can choose that new store and then send those settings down. If you're trying to do one simple setting change to update your entire chain, you can simply choose that new setting. Let's say that I want to do my corporate IP address, and then I can choose all stores or that check all here and send that down. And that would update that one value at every single one of my stores. So managing settings is very, very simple. It just makes it a simpler process than actually having to remotely access the machine and update each store settings. Now, POS panels, that's another thing you can now manage at corporate. Buttons are in the panels are actually saved in the database. So I can pull buttons and panels from a particular store, save those at corporate, and then send those to other locations. So let's say that I want to pull buttons from store two. I can choose the store two option here. I can choose get. It'll ask, do I want to replace the panels in the database at corporate with the ones from store two? Yes or no? I'll choose yes. And it's going to automatically update those buttons here. Now I can send those updated panels to store one, or I can create a panel set. Now a panel set is going to be where it's saving this particular set of panels and buttons as a name at corporate. That way, whenever I pull from, let's say I want to pull store one now, whenever I choose replace corporate panels from store one, even though I choose yes, I still have a backup of those buttons from store two. So I can automatically pull those up without actually having to pull that through the internet from store 2 again. So let's take a look at how that actually works. I'm going to go back to my store 2. I'm going to choose get. I'm going to pull those panels. Then I want to copy these panels to a new set. So I could just simply call this store 2. I can choose create new set. And that's going to basically save these panels and those buttons to a panel set called store 2. So now whenever I go to store 1 and I pull, yes, I'm overriding what is my current active set of panels at corporate, but I can always simply pull store 2 panels back by choosing the replace panel set. I'm going to reload this module so we can see that store 2. Here's my store 2. I can choose replace set. And then this is actually replacing the store 1 panels at corporate without having to go through the internet because I already have store 2's panels saved at corporate. The key with doing this is at store level, anytime you make a panel change, as seen in the POS settings and button updating webinar, anytime you make a change, you want to, in your settings, make sure that under the register settings, you choose Save Panels to DB. That's going to save those physical files that's in the POS settings folder, the database, which allows other registers to pull from that particular register, as well as corporate pulling. So I can now load these panels. Then whenever I load my POS back up, I'll have a different set of panels in place. So now I'm going to go back to my POS settings here. I'm going to go to my main set. I'm going to replace this set here. Go back to my POS. Then if I wanted to reload that main set of panels, I just simply actions, settings, load panels from database, and then now my POS buttons would change. Now at store level, there's a setting to make this an automated process. And that's a good setting to enable. Under your settings, under register, there is a auto load panels from DB. If you have that checked at store level, anytime that there is a panel change or button change that is sent down to that store, upon the next time the POS is actually opened, it's automatically going to load those panels without actually having to go and click that load panels from database button. That makes this an automated process where there's no requirement for anybody to be at the store level to update those buttons. So that's how your panel editing works. Just a simple process of pulling from one location, sending to other locations, and then managing those sets where you can have different sets of panels at corporate. If you need to manage, if you need to actually alter the buttons at corporate, you can do so by opening the POS at corporate. Just make sure that you actually don't do any kind of sales or any kind of transactional data at corporate because that could cause data issues. But you can actually open the POS up, go to your settings, go to your button editor, and then make changes on those panels. As long as you save that and then do as I showed a second ago and save those to your database, then you can manipulate those as a panel set and then send those down to other stores. That brings us to the managed Tinder mapping. And that's going to be what we talked about toward the beginning, assigning specific manufacturers a specific Tinder type. So I can pull from one location. I can see what companies they have. I can send that down to other locations. That way I don't have to go to every store location and enter in my Tinder and my manufacturer prefix. It just makes that a much simpler process. All right, I hope everybody learned something new today. Once again, these webinars are every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can see a list of these if you go to our website, goftx.com, Choose the FTx Lifeline tab at the top of the page for that webinar button. This page will show you a list of all of our previous webinars where you can view the recording, webinars that are upcoming that you can choose the Register Now link, as well as the subscribe to the newsletter. If you have any questions on this particular topic, let us know at websupport@fasttrackspos.com. If you have any suggestions on future webinar topics, let us know at info@goftx.com. Thank you, and have a great weekend.